Oh yes, so I was doing these museum exhibitions, and Arthur Bursch, who's the producer, the publisher of Playbill, you all know what Playbill is, it's the magazine you get at the New York theaters, it tells you who's in the play and whoever. He asked me through Paul Steiger, remember, he was the first to buy and design from me. He asked Paul and I to do a series of collectible books, and each collectible book in it had a collection, which was an interesting idea. And my job, because I knew whose closet had which designs, because I sold them to them, and if they weren't on the wall, and I knew which designers, what designs were left in the designer's closet. I knew where the designs were, in other words. And where I didn't, I would travel. I had a budget to go around and find them. And of course, I've done some of this in Europe, but that's when I got to Bob Tobin's warehouse in San Diego and found that it was so poorly handled. So I made a list of collectible books, and it was like the theater of Max Reinhardt, the Russians with Diaghilev, that kind of thing. And it was all outlined, and I must say, I did it with amazement because they were paying me a fortune to do this. I never could imagine that anyone would pay me so much to do something that was not that difficult. And well, I knew what I was doing, but I didn't know that people made so much money doing this. So I happily assented to the task, presented it, and then it never came to fruition. But that was one thing that came out of doing these museum and library exhibitions. But I did want to say that, getting back to the curators of collections, I don't think private collectors have the same mania, but museum and library curators have a protectiveness about their collection to the point where they'll almost deny they have something you're looking for. They don't want you to know about it. It's their baby. Stay away. And it was incredible. I went to the Harvard Theater Collection, and I told Gene Newland, who was then the director of it, come in. Welcome.
Hello.
Would you like to sit here and tell us anything?
I could tell you a lot. You're the one sitting there right now, so I'll let you.
We're going to have some more. Good. I think well, maybe they're not. Anyhow, I told Jean Newland what I was looking for, and she said, well, how about the collection, we'll have lunch together. And when we had lunch, I said, you know, Jean, why didn't you tell me when I came in that you had this all along? And not only that, but you had blah, blah, blah. And she said, oh, I knew you'd find it. But she hoped I didn't find it. There's something wrong with curators that keep you from the knowledge of what they have. It's sort of a jealousy. And I wasn't stealing it, I just wanted to put it in, or have mentioned that this is where it is. Anyhow, and then when I started expanding collections, like at the Cooper Hewitt, at the Museum of the City of New York, and other Lincoln Center Library for the Performing Arts, I knew which designers would be willing to donate designs to make the collection more perky, up to date, what have you. But there is also a law that says that the designers cannot take full market value of their design off their income tax. So what I did was I simply had Oliver Smith say that he was giving 5 designs by Freddie Wittop, valued at the gallery valuation because I had the gallery, and that would be his tax deduction. And Freddie Wittop would be giving Oliver Smith's. It was very simple. But if they did it themselves, they would get a smallest fraction of that. It would be the cost of the ink or the paint or the paintbrushes, not the thousands of dollars of retail value. So that was interesting. Anyhow, the maintenance is important for anyone collecting anything. And insurance comes into it, and insurance, especially if you have a collection that you think, aha, the Metropolitan Museum will love to have this. Well, even if they want to have it, you better be able to pay the maintenance for it, because now museums charge you to keep it up. Wow. They don't just take it and maybe or maybe not exhibit it. but there has to be a fund to support it. Now, one thing I thought should be pointed out, that where does collecting become hoarding? Because I've seen so often, I go to visit people and I say, don't they know how to put this? And also, this doesn't really fit so well anymore, it's superfluous, and I can't get by here, and how am I supposed to go through all that stuff? Hoarding is really a disease that is an outgrowth of collecting, but not necessarily. It's just a warning, don't hoard anything. Now, when Alita asked me to come and give a little talk here, and she said it's for Art Matters, and my instant response was, who said it didn't? I mean, it seemed like such a silly, and I thought about it, and then I realized, you know, a lot of people take art for granted and simply don't give it the value that it deserves. And, you know, politicians will gladly cut the budget cut the art out, never mind something else, but art is the first to go. And art should not be the first to go in anyone's life, in any system. Art does really matter. And so I'm glad that there's an organization to remind us. For me, yeah, of course. But to a lot of people, really? What's that? I guess education is where it has to come in. People have to be enlightened, encouraged to understand that art does matter. Now, speaking of art matters, Antique Roadshow, I forgot how that melody goes, but they're coming to town. Albuquerque is the town, in April. So I had a notion that I would bring, and I wore it today just because I knew you'd want to see it. I'm bringing them a belt that Harry S. Truman gave me when I stayed in Independence at his house. And it's ruby and 2 kinds of gold. It's a rancher's belt. And with it will be photographs, letters, and other envelopes, what have you. So I think it'd be interesting to see what they say. And so cart down some art, some antique or whatever, and I'll see you at the Antique Roadshow. Thank you.